Welcome to the Digital Arcade, where we dive deep into the world of gaming, its legends, its failures, and its redemptions. I'm your host, Adam, and today's episode is a long one because we're talking about a game that sparked global hype, faced massive backlash, and somehow made one of the most unexpected comebacks in modern gaming. Yep, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. And with me, as always, is the ever-curious and equally opinionated Layla. Hey, Layla.
Hey, Adam. I've been waiting for this one. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those rare games where the story behind the game is just as fascinating as the game itself.
Absolutely. When CD Projekt RED announced it, people were beyond excited. After The Witcher 3, they had the reputation of gods in the RPG world. But when Cyberpunk 2077 finally dropped in December 2020, well, it was chaos.
Yeah. The launch was, how do I put this? An apocalyptic dumpster fire, especially on consoles. Bugs, crashes, disappearing NPCs, broken quests. It was like a beta version accidentally released to the world.
And yet, the pre-orders were through the roof. Over 8 million digital pre-orders. It became the fastest-selling PC game of all time at that point. But all of that excitement evaporated fast when players realized what they got wasn't what was promised.
The backlash was brutal. Refunds, lawsuits, Sony pulling the game from the PlayStation Store. You don't usually see that happen with AAA titles. And it was especially painful because people wanted to love this game.
That's the thing. Underneath all the bugs and performance issues, there was something genuinely special. A world that wanted to be explored. A narrative that wanted to hit hard, but it was all buried under technical failure.
I remember playing it on a base PS4. It was like trying to run a Ferrari on a dirt road with 3 wheels missing. NPCs would T-pose, dialogue would cut off, and textures would take minutes to load. It felt like a betrayal.
And it wasn't just the bugs. People were also angry about the misleading trailers, the features that were hyped but never made it into the final game. Wall running, branching story paths with major impact, a dynamic police system. Cut.
The marketing set expectations sky high. And when the final product couldn't deliver on that dream, gamers didn't just get disappointed, they got furious.
To be fair, CD Projekt RED did apologize repeatedly. They owned up to the mistakes, offered refunds, and started working on patches almost immediately. But let's not forget, the damage was already done.
True, but what makes Cyberpunk 2077 so fascinating isn't the disaster of its launch. It's what came after, how they turned it around. And that's what I think we should talk about next.
Exactly. Because 2 years later, after dozens of patches and one massive expansion, the game is now being called one of the best RPGs of the decade. That's a redemption arc you don't see every day. So, Layla, the launch was a disaster. But then something unexpected happened. CDPR RED didn't abandon ship. They doubled down.
Yeah, and that surprised a lot of people. Usually when a game bombs that hard, studios either move on or push out a sequel to make up for it. But CDPR took a different route. They spent years fixing Cyberpunk 2077.
And the first sign of hope came with patch 1.2. It was massive. Hundreds of bug fixes, performance boosts, especially on last-gen consoles, and tweaks to AI and driving mechanics. But even then, it felt like they were just patching holes in a sinking ship.
Right, but the real turning point, that came with patch 1.5 in 2022. That update didn't just fix bugs, it rebalanced the entire gameplay system. It made gunplay tighter, combat more rewarding, and even added the long-requested apartment customization feature.
Exactly. Patch 1.5 made the game playable, even enjoyable, for the first time for a lot of players. Then came patch 1.6, which added even more polish and laid the foundation for what came next, Phantom Liberty.
Yes, Phantom Liberty. That expansion changed everything. It wasn't just a DLC. It felt like a relaunch, like Cyberpunk 2077 reforged.
And it wasn't just a side story. It introduced an entirely new district, Dogtown, along with new characters, quests, weapons, and a political spy thriller narrative that hit harder than anything in the base game.
And let's not forget Idris Elba. His role as Solomon Reed added a whole new layer of gravitas to the game. His performance was incredible, subtle, mature, and full of emotional tension.
Absolutely. I'd even argue that Phantom Liberty had better writing and pacing than the original main questline. It felt more grounded, more urgent, and more morally complex.
But it wasn't just story content. The 2.0 update that came alongside Phantom Liberty completely overhauled the RPG mechanics. New perk trees, smarter AI, vehicle combat, and cyberware limits that actually made your choices matter.
Suddenly, every decision felt weighty again. Were you going to build a stealth netrunner who fries people from behind walls? Or go full chrome tank with shotguns and mantis blades?
It finally delivered on the fantasy they promised in the trailers back in 2018, a true cyberpunk sandbox with freedom, danger, and style.
And let's not overlook how Phantom Liberty also fixed the ending. The new story arc gave players an alternate conclusion, one that hit emotionally and ethically in ways the base game never quite achieved.
It gave V's story a new kind of closure. And that matters because for a long time, it felt like CDPR didn't really know what kind of fate they wanted for the character. Now, it finally felt earned.
So the question is, was it too little, too late? Or was this the redemption arc gaming needed?
That's the beauty of it. I think it's both. Yes, they burned a lot of trust, but they also showed what real commitment to a vision looks like. They could have abandoned Cyberpunk. Instead, they rebuilt it, almost from scratch.
And now, thanks to all these changes, the game is being called a modern classic. Steam reviews have flipped from mostly negative to very positive. Millions of players have come back, and it's finally the game people hoped for.
It's a lesson in patience and accountability, and maybe, just maybe, the start of a new philosophy for game development. Release when it's ready, not when the marketing team says so.
Amen to that.
Let's rewind a bit and talk about how we got here in the first place, because the story of Cyberpunk 2077 didn't start with the launch. It started way back in 2012.
Right. That's when CD Projekt RED first teased the game. A logo, a name, and the promise of a future where style is everything and body modification is just another Tuesday.
And then came that trailer in 2013, the one with the bullet time police scene, the woman with the mantis blades, and the tagline, "Coming when it's ready."
That aged like milk.
Yep. But for years, fans waited, quietly, patiently. CDPR was riding high on the success of The Witcher 3, and people trusted them completely.
Then, E3 2018 happened. Keanu Reeves stepped on stage, told us, "You're breathtaking," and Cyberpunk 2077 suddenly became the most hyped game of the decade.
Pre-orders exploded. Media outlets called it the next evolution of RPGs. And behind the scenes, CDPR was facing a monster they'd created, because the hype train had no brakes.
And that's where the problems really began. Reports later revealed that the development was a mess. The team didn't even enter full production until 2016. That left just 4 years to build one of the most ambitious games ever made.
Not to mention, they switched engines midway, scrapped entire systems, and were essentially building a skyscraper on shifting sand. And then there's the infamous crunch.
Developers working 6-day weeks, sleeping in offices, dealing with burnout and last-minute rewrites. It's heartbreaking, especially when the product they shipped wasn't even finished.
And the leadership didn't help. Management reportedly kept pushing for unrealistic deadlines, overpromised to shareholders, and ignored internal warnings about the state of the game.
It's a case study in what happens when marketing overtakes production. You can't rush innovation. You can't force magic.
What's even more painful is that the devs, many of whom loved the project, felt like their work was being sacrificed for PR. The backlash didn't just hit the studio, it hit the people who poured their lives into this game.
Exactly. But what's inspiring is that many of those same developers stayed after the launch, pushed through the chaos, and helped fix the game. That kind of passion, you don't find it everywhere.
There's a kind of bittersweet poetry to it. The game failed because of ambition, and yet it succeeded later because of that same ambition once given the right conditions to grow.
And now looking back, Cyberpunk 2077 stands as a symbol, not just of hype gone wrong, but of what can happen when a studio decides to own its mistakes and make it right.
Which raises an interesting question. Will other studios learn from this, or are we doomed to repeat this cycle of overhype, under-deliver, and post-launch patching?
I think gamers are more aware now. The industry is under a magnifying glass. Transparency matters, and developers are learning that silence and honesty often work better than cinematic CGI trailers.
Still, Cyberpunk walked so other games don't have to crawl. It's a hard-earned legacy, but it's one that matters. All right, we've talked about the launch, the fixes, and the development struggles. But now, let's get to the soul of the game. The story and the world of Cyberpunk 2077.
Finally, because no matter how broken the game was at launch, I always felt there was a strong emotional core hiding underneath all the glitches. The story of V and Johnny Silverhand still sticks with me.
Same here. V's journey is a ticking time bomb, literally. You're a merc trying to make it big in Night City, and you end up with a digital ghost in your head. Johnny, played by none other than Keanu Reeves.
And what a performance. Johnny could have been a cliché, but Keanu gave him nuance. He's not just a rebel rock star. He's angry, broken, idealistic, and at times deeply selfish.
But also weirdly lovable. You hate him and love him in equal measure. And that dynamic between V and Johnny is the emotional backbone of the game. It's not just about surviving. It's about identity, legacy, and control.
Exactly. The idea that your mind is being overwritten by another person's soul is terrifying. But the way the game lets you slowly build or destroy that relationship is genius.
And the way it's written, surprisingly intimate. There are scenes on rooftops, in abandoned bars, in quiet moments where Johnny reveals layers, and V becomes more than just a player character. V becomes you.
But what elevates the whole experience is Night City. That place is more than just a backdrop. It's a living, breathing character.
Oh yeah. Night City is overwhelming in the best way. Every district has its own vibe. Watson with its claustrophobic alleys, Pacifica with its decaying luxury, the neon-soaked Corpo Plaza. It's a vertical nightmare, full of beauty.
And the level of environmental storytelling is incredible. Graffiti, radio stations, news reports, conversations on the street. It all paints a picture of a broken society chasing perfection through tech.
And it's not just visual. The world feels reactive. The way people dress, how they talk, the ads blaring on every screen, all of it reinforces this central theme. Your body is not your own anymore.
There's this constant tension between freedom and control. You can be anything you want in Night City, but at what cost?
Let's talk about the side quests for a moment, because honestly, that's where the game shines brightest. The main story is solid, but the side stories? They're the heart.
Absolutely. Judy's arc, for example. It starts with a brain dance mystery and evolves into a story about love, grief, and hope. Or Panam, whose loyalty mission turned into a whole cinematic mini-campaign.
Then there's River, Carrie, and the entire Parallels plotline. That one creeped me out. The idea of political puppets controlled via memory manipulation? Straight up Orwellian.
And Takemura, how could we forget him? One of the most underappreciated characters, a loyal samurai caught between honor and survival.
That mission where you can choose to save him or leave him to die is one of those small, personal choices that echo across the rest of your playthrough.
The branching narrative paths don't just change dialogue, they change the world. Who lives, who dies, what ideologies you side with, it all adds up.
And the endings? Each one feels like a gut punch. Whether you choose to disappear into the net with Alt, ride into the sunset with Panam, or let Johnny take over, there's no true happy ending.
And that's the most cyberpunk thing about it. Victory is always bittersweet. Freedom always comes with a price.
I think that's what surprised a lot of players. They came in expecting a power fantasy and left with an existential crisis.
Yeah, I remember finishing the game and just staring at the credits, processing. Not many games do that to me.
It's rare, for sure, and it's a testament to the writing team. They built a world that's dark, yes, but not hopeless. There's beauty in the chaos. And sometimes that beauty is just a quiet moment on a rooftop, watching the sun rise over a broken city.
Poetic, Adam.
Only when Night City inspires it.
So, Layla, we've covered everything from the disastrous launch, the patches, the DLC, the characters, the world. But let's zoom out now. What does Cyberpunk 2077 leave behind as its legacy?
Honestly, it's a paradox. It's both a cautionary tale and a redemption story. It showed us everything that's wrong with how games are marketed, and everything that's still right about how they can be saved.
Exactly. On one hand, it was a prime example of how hype can distort expectations. CD Projekt RED wasn't ready, but the game was sold as a finished product, and players felt betrayed.
And on the other hand, they didn't walk away. They didn't leave the game to rot. They owned up, they communicated, and they put in the work. And that matters.
A lot of games stumble, but very few recover like Cyberpunk did. Not just technically, but emotionally. Players wanted to forgive it. They just needed a reason. And CDPR gave them that.
It makes you wonder, what if more studios had that same mindset? What if games were treated like evolving platforms rather than one-and-done products?
True, but it also raises another issue. Should we accept broken launches if they get fixed later? Should we be grateful when a studio delivers on a promise years after taking our money?
That's a hard one. I think the real answer lies in transparency. If a game is in early access, say it. If it's not ready, delay it. Players aren't stupid, but we hate being lied to.
It's also about respect. Cyberpunk failed not because it was ambitious, but because its publisher disrespected its audience and its developers. The fix came when they flipped that around.
And let's be real. Now, in 2025, Cyberpunk 2077 is a fantastic game. With Phantom Liberty and Update 2.0, it stands shoulder to shoulder with the best open-world RPGs out there.
Absolutely. I'd even argue it surpasses many of them in terms of atmosphere, storytelling, and philosophical depth. It's not just about shooting and looting, it's about being.
Yeah, about what it means to be human in a world where flesh and data are interchangeable. That theme runs through everything, from V's arc to the city's design to even the smallest side quests.
That's what sticks with you. Not the glitches, not the memes, but the questions the game asks. Who are you really when your memories, your body, even your voice can be altered?
That's the soul of Cyberpunk. It's not just cool tech and neon lights. It's identity, control, loss, freedom. Cyberpunk 2077 gets that now, more than ever.
So where do we go from here? What's next for CDPR RED?
Well, they've confirmed a sequel is in development, codename Project Orion. And from what we've heard, they're taking everything they learned from Cyberpunk and applying it from day one.
Which is exciting and terrifying. Expectations will be sky high again, but this time they know the price of failure.
I hope they take their time. I hope they keep talking to the community. And most importantly, I hope they remember the why behind the wow.
Well said. It's not just about big explosions or celebrity cameos. It's about telling stories that matter in worlds that feel alive.
And making games that treat players like partners, not just customers.
Amen to that. So, final thoughts?
Cyberpunk 2077 will always be remembered, not just for how it fell, but for how it rose. It's not perfect, but it's powerful. And in the end, it became what it always wanted to be, a legend.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Digital Arcade. If you've played Cyberpunk 2077 recently, let us know your experience. Was it worth the wait?
And don't forget, if you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe, leave a rating, and hit that notification bell. More episodes coming your way soon.
Until next time, stay safe in the city, chooms.
And don't trust the corpos. Ever.